Hey, what's up guys? Normally I do a big video at the beginning of the year for all the upcoming horror new releases. But, well, 2020 happened, and so pretty much everything that was going to come out last year didn't. Stuff like the new Candyman, Halloween Kills, and one I was really looking forward to, Antlers. And hopefully all of that stuff will come out later this year, fingers crossed. So rather than go over the same stuff again, I wanted to do my top 10 horror flicks of 2020 instead. There ended up being a ton of other stuff that wasn't even on my radar that came out and I ended up really loving. So at least the year wasn't so bad after all, at least in that sense. Still got some good stuff that came out, even if it wasn't what I was initially anticipating. So let's kick off my FoundFlix's top 10 of 2020, and including a few honorable mentions as well. What would you do to get success on social media? That's the idea of the insane satire spree. We follow desperate Kurt Kunkel, played with effortless charm by Stranger Things Joe Keery, as he goes further and further in hopes of precious likes via a set of constantly streaming cameras placed all over his rideshare car. And things quickly go from basic to murderous almost instantly. But Keery is just so damn likable here. Even as things get darker and go further off the rails, we can't help but cheer him on. This was quite darkly hilarious with some surprising action and violence as well, that keeps building and building in intensity into a shocking and memorable climax. In the Russian 80s set Sputnik, a young doctor is tasked with examining a cosmonaut who returns to Earth with an alien parasite inside of him. This one is certainly beholden to Alien, but its particular take on an extraterrestrial creature is done with its own spin that really sets it apart on its own, with a kind of weirdly symbiotic relationship between it and its host. And the thing is just really weird looking, in addition to being deadly as hell. This worked for me on every level, with excellent performances from our leads that was actually a lot more heartfelt than I expected. And the Cold War atmosphere adds a lot too. If you're a fan of hard sci-fi that takes its time, Sputnik is right up your alley. When it comes to horror anthologies, especially modern ones, they are generally pretty hit or miss. So it's a delight that 2020 brought us two quite different, but both excellent entries into the subgenre. The Mortuary Collection stories are all drastically different in tone and feel that helps each stand on their own, and is actually pretty damn twisted a lot of times, way more than I anticipated. While Scare Package, on the other hand, is a loving homage to 80s horror, filled with references to the classic of the era, and it's just gleefully insane with its hilarious gore-filled tales. Yeah, some are stronger than others, but there really isn't a weak spot in either of these anthologies, and I'm happy to see some fresh takes that are actually quite excellent still being made. Come to Daddy is one of those exciting movie experiences, because it goes into so many unexpected directions that it constantly keeps you on your toes, thanks in no small part to Elijah Wood as the awkward man-child Morvel. He is just as in the dark as the audience is, as he peels back more layers behind his missing father. It's got this weird kind of humor throughout that I love too. This coming from the same Australian team as the Greasy Strangler, that makes sense. It's also got some really thrilling sequences and some hardcore gore as well. Most notably Norval stabbing the hell out of a dude's nuts with a barbecue fork that is absolutely brutal. Woo-wee, I can still feel that one. Youch! No H.P. Lovecraft adaptation has brought his world of cosmic horror to life more than this year's Color Out of Space. There's an almost dreamlike feel to everything, as our family starts to crumble when a mysterious orb arrives from outer space and crashes right onto their land, beginning to change the environment and the family themselves into something else entirely. It's got some killer visuals, everything washed in a haze of purples and blues, as things turn more interstellar. And one in particular monster thing that is absolutely horrifying, not to mention the gut-wrenching moans and groans that it makes that really leaves an impression. And of course, this stars the incomparable Nicolas Cage, playing the struggling patriarch trying to keep his idyllic life and family intact no matter what. This is a good one. I gotta give major credit to Lee Winnell with his update of the classic Universal monster, the Invisible Man. He's written some big franchise starters like Saw and Insidious, and showed some promise with his directorial debut, Upgrade. But Winnell reaches new heights as a horror filmmaker with this. The most effective scare gag is the use of empty space, lingering for moments on what appears to be nothing, but we don't know, because, the guy's invisible and everything. This really keeps the audience on edge the whole time in an especially effective way. And one jump scare later with the paint made me jump right out of my seat. And this also does good with a feminist angle without being too on the nose about it, which is always a plus as well. Hard to get the balance there. Black Christmas, anyone? Yeesh. I was already sold on this Irish supernatural comedy when I saw the trailer. It just looked really different and also quite hilarious. Something about the understated Irish style that really really works for me. But it was really the appearance of Will Forte that got me on board. I've always thought this dude was absolutely hysterical, and seeing him here as a kind of wannabe Satan freak was even funnier than I could have thought. Certainly Extraordinary is not the scariest horror flick around. Quite the opposite, in fact, as it's more about our co-leads awkwardly falling in love while dealing with a brewing evil in their small town. The chemistry of the cast, the humor, and its particular take on psychic abilities, and so much more makes this one a very memorable and fun experience. The platform is honestly pretty brilliant in its grander ambitions and how they are showcased. In the future, we follow prisoners housed in vertical cells that watch as inmates in the upper levels are fed while those below starve. We meet a new addition to the menagerie that has a Don Quixote-esque journey, eventually attempting to take down the entire broken system. This one has a lot going for it, like an intriguing mystery of just what the heck is going on that is slowly unspooled, along with showcasing just how people change based on their arbitrary societal levels. Guess what? They're assholes. Oh, and it's got some absolutely insane action and gore, which certainly helped to make its impact in relation to its overall themes. The bonkers Brazilian slasher Skull the Mask is just seriously badass. Lots of people try to do their take on a classic 80s slasher with mixed results, and sure, our unstoppable killer here feels like a riff on Jason, but there's something just so appealing to me about this one. Again, the killer is seriously badass. It's got an excellent synth-heavy score, some weird otherworldly cosmic stuff to the mythology, but most importantly, there's an absolute shit ton of gore and violence that really pushes the envelope in that regard. People getting split in half, ribs torn out, all kinds of crazy stuff. And one scene in a club where our killer goes absolutely ham, definitely a highlight. This was just the perfect kind of update on an 80s slasher for me, but annoyingly this isn't available anywhere to stream at the moment. Hopefully it'll come out sometime later this year. I can understand Possessor being a very divisive viewing experience because it is admittedly very weird and challenging to process in the strange way that it unfolds its story. There's a lot to analyze as far as reasons for characters' actions and larger statements about one's own lack of identity in today's society. Pretty heady stuff for sure. But I don't know, that kind of stuff is my bag, I guess. And this one really was appealing for many reasons. It's fundamentally weird sci-fi conscious swapping assassin stuff, plus it's peppered with some hardcore brutal moments of violence and gore, along with a healthy heaping of trippy off-putting abstract visuals. Count me in, you know. Brandon Cronenberg here proves himself a more than worthy successor of his body horror legend father David. And I'm excited to see what Brandon has cooking up next. And now on to the honorable mentions. Visually impressive and extremely well acted, His House follows two refugees that flee to a new life in England, but find the ghosts of the past and their mistakes start to intervene with their fresh start. I like the social commentary in this and was quite well done, but the spirits here could have perhaps been a bit more frightening. This two-hander follows a duo trying to one-up each other's scary stories, and while definitely quite simple, it's highly entertaining, in particular thanks to Ayakash's snarky performance. I'm sure you guys saw The Boys. And I like how their campfire tale started to come to life in more and more vivid detail as the night wears on. This is an extremely downbeat and dour affair, following siblings that return to their family farm and soon discover something wicked has arrived. It's very tense and unsettling throughout, and has some excellent scary moments, but these can't help but be a bit bogged down by its drawn-out drama that dominates the majority of the runtime. I really dug this action-packed sci-fi horror flick that follows a group that works on a drilling facility on the ocean floor and inadvertently unleashes an ancient evil creature. It's got lots of excellent action set pieces and interesting creatures that make this one stand out amongst its other underwater horror brethren. Host is perhaps the best horror movie representation of 2020, having been produced completely in lockdown via laptop cameras, as we follow a group of friends performing an online seance. It's got some surprisingly good scares and impressive visual effects, but I just wish it was at least a little bit longer than 55 minutes. Too short! Well, that about wraps it up for my top 10 horror flicks of the year. What did you guys think of my list? And what are your favorites of 2020? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And hey, let's hope 2021 is at least a little better than the last one. That's not like a huge bar or anything really, right? Thanks for watching FoundFlix, and we'll see you next time.